Hey guys, thank you for tuning back into Breaking the Ice. This week we're going to be talking about game art and game art books that are coming out after the games have been released. I guess we're just going to get right into it, but essentially lately I've been really into collecting art books. Not so much games anymore. Like I noticed that whenever I'm collecting games, I know sometimes it can be like 40, 50, $60 just depending on, how rare a game is or how much I actually played it when I was a kid, which makes me, kind of not. Sometimes you can run into games where like it is rare, but you don't necessarily have any nostalgia for it because you never played it as a kid. And I guess sometimes it's a little bit off-putting since video game prices have been rising a lot. I guess people have been getting into retro collecting for. I guess people have been getting into retro game collecting lately. Because I noticed the prices have been rising for a little while. But I noticed that whatever I'll do, let's say I go to Half Price Books or whatever video game store, I'll take a look actually at the strategy guides and the art books before I'll actually go straight for the games. The only unfortunate thing is that, when the older Nintendo games, which I'm really into, like NES, Super Nintendo, etc., they don't really have art books per se, but what they do have is the official Nintendo strategy guides that they used to have, which has a lot of the art in it, plus screenshots that are taken directly from the game. But it kind of sucks that they don't have their own original art. You almost have to go seek out. There's maybe like things here and there, like memorabilia, but that's pretty much it. As you get into the later, I think now that games are being accepted more as art, they tend to have books being released. The only unfortunate thing, though, is I think not every company is releasing art books just for the sake of the game. Usually for like a AAA title or whatever, they'll have an art book released for it. But for the most part, let's say the game that you like, it might be an indie game or so on, you're not guaranteed an art book. Or you're not guaranteed some type of thing that kind of compiles the art. If you're into collecting it, I think what's going on with that is actually so there may not be a game book or a game art book. They'll always have a strategy guide, and some of the strategy guides, I tend to notice that they have little artwork in the back, or like they'll include almost like a DVD or a Blu-ray. You know how sometimes they have those, it almost looks like a little hardcover book, and they might have like 10, 20, 30 pages. The only game that I know that did that was actually Demon's Souls. It's such a hard name to fucking say, but essentially Demon's Souls will have a hard cover art book, and I believe that it had 40 pages of just different little art and little concept things that they did, but there's no actual dedicated strategy guide or no actual I fucked it up, but essentially there's no dedicated art book towards it. They do have a dedicated strategy guide to it, however. I think it's not necessarily official, but they did include one in the collector's edition a long time ago. That does have actually like real help, and they does have artwork in it, but it's nothing like major. And if you really like the design of that game, since it's the first of its kind, they might have had like difficult games. It reminds people of like back in the NES days where you had to keep doing trial and error. Like for example, in Demon's Souls, you can be running up a staircase, everything's fine and dandy, and then out of nowhere, you get hit by a fucking skeleton that was in like a little cubby hole right beside the stairs. You fall off the stairs, you end up dying. And to be honest, I bought that game back when it came out. I don't remember hearing about how I heard about it, but to be fair, I played that game for like several hours. We're talking like 30, 40, 50, and I would like shut it off. I'd get frustrated, and then I'd come back to playing it again. I'd make a little bit more progress, but to be honest, the things that everyone talks about, where they're always talking about, oh, well, you'll feel this massive achievement after you get done with the game, or after you like beat a really hard boss after dying like 600 times. I didn't get that. Like I just got frustrated, and then when I beat a boss, I was like, fuck, that wasn't worth it. But To be fair, though, I never really did beat the game, but I heard the ending was really shitty for Demon Souls. Or not that the ending was really shitty. I remember hearing that the boss at the very end was really crappy, and that there wasn't really any real last boss. But I always did love the art for it. Then, the Dark Souls series came out, but I never got into those. The Dark Souls series, I think I learned my lesson with the Demon Souls series, or with the Demon Souls game. I think I got put off by like the difficulty, and it's like I noticed that I was getting more mad every single time I played, and I was like, Jesus Christ, this isn't fucking fair. I get my ass handed to me essentially. I'm not even gonna tell you that I was good at the game, but that's pretty much it. For the most part, though, then the Dark Souls series came out, and I love the art of the Dark Souls series. I've taken a look at it. I never really played the games, minus like 10 minutes, but I do love the art style to the game because sometimes I'll look up on YouTube different videos and so on, and I see that they do have a trilogy of books. They have one for Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3, and they're hardcover, and they have a really nice like actual lining to the book and everything like that, but it actually does a good job at showing all the different art. I heard once you get to like Dark Souls 2 is a little bit like in terms of art plus the actual game itself. I haven't really spoken to anyone about Dark Souls 3, but I heard Dark Souls 1 is one of the stronger games since it takes everything that Demon Souls and is a spiritual successor, and that makes it actually pretty good. It kind of improves upon everything that Demon Souls didn't do too great. But the art is really great. I notice also for those types of games, I don't know why, but I've been really into Bloodborne. And I have not played the game. So let me preface it with that. I have not played Bloodborne minus 5 minutes, but I don't really count that as playing it. It's usually just like because I didn't have the game and someone let me try it for like 5 minutes or 10 minutes before I had to go somewhere. But I love the art style of that game. I don't know what it is that hits me like right in the heart. I have no idea why, but that art style speaks to me so much better than like any other game. I think it might have something to do with the reason I love Castlevania, the original, like from NES, but I also love like as you get into like Lords of Shadow and so on. I love that type of art style. I guess like maybe it's called like gothic horror. Cause even like Dracula, for example, like Castle Ravenloft from like Dungeons and Dragons. I just love the name. I love the imagery it brings up, but I love Bloodborne's art, and it actually kind of surprised me because the American version, they did release an art book for this, but it was Japanese art book. But that came out like over 2 years ago, like near when the game came out. Like I think it was like 2014, 2015, somewhere around there. But what I can't believe, they have not even released an art book in the US version, the English version, until it didn't even come out till like, it's like March 31st right now. It doesn't even come out till like June 13th or June 3rd. I can't remember. There was a date on Amazon, but you can pre-order it. And I think I'm going to buy it. It looks awesome. It's like a black hardcover book, I believe. I'm not sure if it's hardcover. I'm pretty sure, but I know it's a black border, essentially. The whole book is in black. It's called Bloodborne Official Artworks. But it has all the concepts and designs of the enemies, the weapons, the bosses, pretty much everything. I definitely gonna buy that book, but I think it's around like $25 to $28. But what surprises me is that it took 2 years. It's almost like sometimes in Japan people appreciate art a little bit more than over here in America. I don't know what it is, but I just always get that feeling that people don't really care so much about art of games and more about just, I guess, the game itself. They just like for example, there's like Call of Duty's like one of the best selling games of all time, but yet it's like, what the fuck are they gonna do? They're gonna release an art book about Call of Duty? It's stupid. I mean, I understand it takes a lot of work to do that game, but I mean that's not the type of game that like you release art for. You know what I mean? Like even the games like The Last of Us, that game is amazing. And I can see they've created a world and everything, especially through like Naughty Dog, the developer of the game. They've created a world, and you can at least, hey, I want to know a little bit more about the world and the characters and the enemies and the different types of zombies, or I guess they're not called zombies, but the infection and so on. I want to learn about that stuff, and you can definitely do that through the art book. But like games like Call of Duty, it's like, what the fuck? That's like nothing. Same thing to do with, like, let's say Uncharted. Uncharted is an action game. You kind of already know it, but I guess is what you want to see is how they created like the action scenes and stuff. Like what exactly did it go through? Same thing, I guess, for like God of War. God of War is all about like Greek mythology. You want to see how they created the different levels, how do they adapted, let's say the river of Styx or the Styx River. You want to know how they create the underworld. You want to know what Zeus looks like, etc. But for like games like Call of Duty, or I'm trying to think of another example off the top of my head. I would look this up, but I don't want the keyboard to clicky clack in front of the microphone, because then you'll hear it all. Gears of War I can understand, because it's like, even though it's I put this in quotes, a bro game, at least it created a world with like locusts and different types of things that are going on. It created characters that you want to know a little bit more about. That's something I can see them doing. So Bloodborne is, what was I talking about? So Bloodborne, yes, I'm going to be buying that art book. I have no idea why it took them 2 years. I mean, and you would think, okay, maybe it's localization, maybe they're trying to change the language. But if you go look at YouTube, or you go look at some of the pictures that people have online, they have Japanese descriptions of like different things on the page, but it's very minimal. Like, there's almost no words at all. They don't give you these big long stories. They give you like an interview or something, but that's pretty much it. So I'm surprised that it took 2 years to show any type of interest. The other one that I think I was really interested in is Zelda. They had the Hyrule Historia, which I bought it several years ago, or my girlfriend actually bought it for me. But it's Hyrule Historia with a really good, timeline. It has a little bit of art in it. It has a little bit of the history of the timelines and so on, and where they go and where they lead up to. I think it was released around like Skyward Sword or somewhere around there. But they just released this new one called Arts and Artifact, I believe. And I'm sure if I get any of this wrong, you can correct me. But that's what it been released, I think, a little bit ago, maybe like a month or so. But they have all the different types of art styles that they've had over the years, from like Wind Waker to the NES games to concept art that they just had creating the game. But those are the type of the guide that I would love to buy. I don't have them all, and I only recently started doing it, but I'm not doing it every day. What I'm trying to do is trying to see if I really want it, and then give myself a little bit, like a week or two before I go out and buy it. But that tends to be what I really enjoy from art books. I think they don't get a lot of credit, to be honest. I mean, I know hardcore collectors will go get the art books, but I feel like sometimes it's not worth their time to do it, the companies. But there's Bethesda, I believe, said, starting with Wolfenstein: The New Order, which is another game that I love. I know it's not like the best game in the world, but I think what it is have to do with the Nazi theme that's going on, and how they're all evil, and how you end up on the moon. But I've always loved that theme, and I think Bethesda said, with each game, starting with Wolfenstein: The New Order, they're going to be releasing an art book along with every game that they publish or develop. So that's going to be interesting. At least, like, if you really like Doom or something, for example, you can go get a Doom art book or so on. I feel like it was more common for PC games to have art books than it was for console games to have art books back in the day, like around the NES, Super Nintendo era. Even like Nintendo 64, for example. And so Wolfenstein is going to be one. I think they released one for Doom. But yeah, that company, I think, realize that, the games are art, it's interesting to see. So, I'm sure there'll be more that come up soon, but I think that's pretty much it. What I wanted to say about it. I guess I like when people fully realize the world. It's like, sometimes you just kind of take it for granted. You go through the game, you do your thing, you play it, you beat it, great, you got a story. But I guess if you want to delve further into the game, you can't really do it unless you have like extra material or extra sources. But for example, like, I know I keep going back to it, you're like, shut up about Bloodborne already. But there's no other game like that, or at least that I know of. There's no other game like that. So you don't really have another place to keep getting more of it. If you like it, you feed it, right? But there's not really another way of pulling it in. There's no other games that are like that. I mean, yeah, you can play Castlevania, but man, it's a very specific style. And so, having the art book is nice because you get to see the different concepts and so on. But yeah, that's all pretty much I wanted to talk about today. Game art books. I've just been getting into them recently. You should, if you are listening to this somehow, the one people that are listening to it, try and take a look for them. Like next time you go, let's say game hunting or whatever it is that you go, try and take a look at the strategy guides and art books. It's really interesting stuff. I think taking a second to take a look at the art and everything, even if you're not necessarily into it, will bring you kind of like a new appreciation for the games. Especially with the game that you love, go check out the art book. Just see if they do have one. Go check it out. You'll actually enjoy it more than you think. Just learning, it's like little trivia, You learn little things about it. But anyways, thank you for tuning back into Breaking the Ice. I appreciate you for listening. If you can, subscribe or whatever if you found this on iTunes, which I have yet to put it up on there. But if you found it on iTunes, Podbean, this is Breaking the Ice. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you guys as soon as possible, maybe next week. See you later.